Well, don't say when you come to my neck of the woods that I don't show you a good time.
We are here in Carrington.
Yes.
In Manchester. Is it Greater Manchester, Carrington?
Oh my God! Don't take me down boundary and county
I don't want
line.
to say the wrong thing.
We're at it's Carrington in Manchester. We'll just do that.
This is the training ground of the Sale Sharks. Your team, first sporting match you ever went to as a kid.
Absolutely, and this is our bonus episode today, where Sale are going to take us behind the scenes. We have access all areas to everything. So we're at training at the moment. We've got so many interviews lined up, players, coaches, owners, all to come on this bonus episode.
Welcome to the Sports Agents.
Ben, Tom, George, thank you very much. Thank you very much as well, Ben, for not wearing shoes so that we can tell you apart. That makes.
Are we on now?
Yeah, we're on. We're on. Yeah.
Have you done this kind of thing before?
I already asked them the wrong way around how fitness was going, and Ben looked very perplexed at that question. So, how's your fitness going?
The fitness is going, yeah. Hopefully, be another week. Just need to get running and get some steps in the legs, and go from there really.
We had the privilege of being outside, not for that long because it was raining. Yeah. So we came in quite quickly of watching you train on a level of intensity before a big game at the weekend. How intense a training session was that?
Yeah, well, it's probably our most intense one of the week. Tuesday always tends to be that. We want to sort of do our learning on a Monday and then try and test it on a Tuesday. So we pretty much go team on a day like today, and it's just competitive, and it's like who can win, who can come out with the best outcomes, and then you obviously put that nature into it, and it becomes quite an intense session. So we believe that if we train like that, it puts us in the best position to go.
And you need that, do you? Because I mean, I sort of stand there thinking, crikey, you've got this massive game at the weekend, and you are flying, but you need that intensity.
Yeah, look, the coaches are very good at sort of the volume of training and like the duration of it. So like, don't get me wrong, everyone's in a bit of a different position now this time of year where there's a few sore bodies. The forwards have it a lot tougher than what we have it.
We noticed that.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's good you said that, because we actually, for the first time, the back row went with the backs, and I was saying before, it's a completely different sport. Like the tight five, so front row, second row, your big lads, they were hitting people, and then we went off with these lads. We were just like, oh, it's all nice, like holding each other's hand. Oh, it's ridiculous. I was saying, in the course of 10 years, you can see why he looks like that, and then
the difference being, right? The difference being.
I can tell you which side of the pitch Chappers wanted to be on.
Anyway, it's not like I want to be hit.
But it's like mentally taxing for the backs. Mentally. Because we have to tell these guys what to do all the time. So like they're just
they don't need any brain power.
No, exactly.
You also had nice music playing towards the back. So do you have a speaker at the other side of the pitch? Because we thought that was quite an interesting addition to a training session.
No, it's usually Westy just like screaming in your face, push harder and hit harder. Like we don't need any speakers.
It had like an Ibiza kind of chill out sound going on at the beginning. I don't want to kind of spoil the
Tell us more, George.
It's got nothing to do with me, but
we don't see this, so it's good to
Rafi Quirk, he's the one behind it. He'll carry the big speaker out with him. It's all his music. It obviously brings a bit of an atmosphere to training. Some of the music's a bit questionable, don't get me wrong, but like that's just his personality and character. He's full of life and energy, and he wants to get the group going, and that's probably a way of doing it.
Speaking of personality and character, we've been lucky enough to spend a lot of time here today. We've been at every corner of the club pretty much and met a lot of people. It seems that as a group you're allowed to be yourself, to express your personality inside this club. And it feels like a family, and we talked to Michelle, it feels like there is a real sense of unity here. You don't really know, because you're lifers, aren't you? But you've been back and forth with Leicester and Bath. So how unusual is that?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing I noticed when I came to the club was how much of a family feel it's got, and like everybody's just themselves, everybody's normal, everyone treats each other with the right respect, the right values. I've never been at a club where you laugh as much, like, because see what I mean? I say one thing, I can't get away with it. Not at these two. No, like you take the mickey out of each other, and it's like it's just accepted, and it's like, I know it sounds quite basic that, but it's the one place where I do think it is. You can come in and you can be yourself, like you said, and express yourself both on and off the field without anyone getting too sort of personal about it, which is great, I think.
Do you feel that, and I'm trying not to be sort of chippy northerner all the way through this, but do you feel like this club goes under the radar?
Possibly. To be fair, it's quite a nice, like, just touching on what George said, like, it's probably quite a nice group of, like, a core group of, like, young lads coming through now. I think when you get kind of a similar age from similar area, you do get that nice family feel. Maybe Al likes to touch on it, doesn't he, in terms of the northern stuff?
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Probably thought he can touch on it a bit more. I don't think, don't sound too northern, but you do, it is a culture, and I think lads who have come in, like I mentioned the core group, but also lads who come in buy into it really well. So yeah, no, it's a nice feeling.
I do think it's taken a long time though. Like,
yeah,
when we first came in, you're right. Like, wasn't even under the radar. I just think the ethos around the club and what we wanted to do is basically just win our home games and kind of blindfold, throw a dart at a board, and hopefully we'll get a win in the away games.
Yeah.
I think Al coming in, trying to develop that sort of culture. Like Ben said, I think George has been a massive signing for us in terms of we had all these people, we had this attitude, we had this want to work hard and hit things, but we needed direction. And I think obviously with the coaches, Al, who he's brought in, George coming in, those sorts of players, we're able to direct that in such a more of an efficient way, but a much more of a kind of, we're here to win games, not here to just like, sit in a meeting on Monday and go, we gave it everything and, we can tap ourselves on the back. And I think that's definitely lifted the level. Obviously, like Ben said, young lads coming through, stepping through and being more mature. I think it's easy when you first break onto the scene and you play a good game here, a good game there. We're now trying to string them together, and then that's when we get our momentum from. And I think now we're starting to be a bit more recognised, but in all honesty, it doesn't really matter. We're just having fun, and we're getting better as we go.
Do you notice a difference? I mean, obviously you all go off and have international experience, and when you're together with England, and there's the different clubs and the different kind of cultures coming together, is there a difference, do you think, in the way the Northern, just for Mark's benefit here, in the way, because you're slightly outliers, because there's only Newcastle left in the north now, and there's so much down kind of in the west part of the country. Do you feel like you have to kind of stick up for Northern Rugby Union?
Well, take the last England camp for example. We had 8 lads there, so like when you've got 8 lads there who are the majority are northern and like obviously 8 Sale lads, you don't really feel like you have to stick up for yourselves because there's a lot of you there to look. We're showing we're good enough to be here, sort of thing.
Has that made a difference though? Because in your time, I imagine that's grown, that cohort.
Yeah, 100%. Like maybe 1 or 2 times there might have been 2 or 3 of us there, and you do go and there's like 6 or 7 Leicester or Northampton players there, and it's like you are the minority there. But I think just off the back of what Tom said, because we are taking a bit more of a like we want to go and win every week, want to be successful. We're serious about this now. Like we're pushing each other, we're demanding more off each other. The younger lads are coming into the system, and that's why they're probably getting recognised at international level, because they're playing in a team that's winning, hopefully. And they're playing in a team that's trying to improve every week, and you see that with them lads. So when we do go into international camp, you don't feel like you have to stick up for the north, but I suppose because everything is down south, like your camps are down south and you play games down south, it's 4.5 hours for us to get there. You do feel like you're out of touch with the north a little bit, but it is amazing to have 7-8 lads go and represent the north down there, which I think is hopefully like it inspires the other lads to do that as well.
There's so many, from sitting in the team meeting earlier, there are so many little touches that show how together you are. Even the start, and I'm guessing this is the start of every team meeting, is it, where you see, I think it was called Sharks in Foreign Water, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where you see what the younger lads are doing on loan, and all their best bits are played to you. So there's that real connection, just those little touches that stick in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. We spoke about young lads coming through, and I think that's massive. Like, essentially, they may not be in a Sale shirt at the weekend, however, they are Sale players, and that's massively important. Like 1, 2, 3 injuries, and they're straight in. We experienced it with Sale FC. When you go away on loan, it probably doesn't feel like you are a Sale player. So it's nice, not just for them, but for us to see what they're doing. Like, you saw Tristan Woodman today; he was unbelievable. It's something actually well done, Tristan. It's good to see.
Yeah, his stats are put up. You're kind of oohing and ahhing at some of the big hits, or there's a round of pause, it means everybody stays together, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it is that difficult part of the season. Actually, it's probably not as difficult as that winter period where, again, it's rugby. It's how rugby's set up at the minute. I don't know if it needs to change, but they come in on they train for their clubs, they play for their clubs on a Saturday, they probably have a day off maybe on a Sunday, and then they have to learn their stuff to train against us on a Monday and a Tuesday. Then some of them have to go back on loan on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, get ready, learn the stuff for their loan clubs, obviously play and just rinse and repeat that. So to try and integrate them more, to get them involved more, so that when they get to step up for sale, they can put their best foot forward. And I think it's been a big step in the last 2 years, I think.
There's been a lot of excitement in the world of rugby, and we've had him on the podcast, about the way Henry Pollock has kind of put himself out there. I know at the weekend, obviously, Bordeaux decided to use that and to their advantage. Do you feel that, first of all, that the sport needs kind of people to do that, to get attention beyond the sport? And is that something you're kind of smirking there in a way that I feel there's a good answer coming from Ben, but is that something that you guys can understand Bordeaux targeting him, because it's so rare in rugby for somebody to do that?
You know what, he's a great player. A lot of what Northampton do revolve around him. So to go after him and kind of take one of their strings away, it probably helps. Is it great to see someone being themselves and openly being themselves? Absolutely, it's brilliant. But I think we're talking about the sport growing. I don't think it needs celebrations.
Really?
I think that it culminates in a lot of other things. I don't think it boils down to one thing. Like a lot of people saying superstars. Like there's so many other things in terms of the structure of the game. Everything around the game in terms of fan engagement. Obviously that is one part that fits into it, but I think there are ultimately bigger steps.
If it brings more eyeballs onto your game though, which ultimately then means more money coming into the game, I'm not saying the future of rugby is resting on Henry Pollock, but if there are more eyeballs on your game, isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, but then you've got to win, and if you do that stuff and don't win, then that's ultimately what it comes down to.
So you haven't been practicing your celebration?
No, definitely.
I'm just getting that from that.
No, I just think it's interesting that everyone talks about the superstars, but then they're like, it's just people don't have to like them as well.
No.
Which is probably, that's another interesting debate. I think the main thing is people just be themselves and everyone do their own jobs. Like commentators do their jobs, make the game exciting. We'll do our jobs to play as well as we can. Yeah, that's a good answer.
but that be yourself is a
Well, just everyone's saying like we've got to celebrate, and it's just like I'll just be myself.
If that's
not you, then you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, have you always been able to be yourself, given the position that you play and what is demanded of you, whether that's internationally or at club level?
I think so. Yeah, I think the more experience, the older you get, it's like anything. Like you understand yourself even more as well. So. I see it quite simple, to be honest. Like, I see it. I want to inspire the next generation of kids to play rugby. And yeah, you want the rugby game to grow, and you want more people watching it. But ultimately, I want kids to come and watch Sale on a Friday night at the AJ Bell. Watch us play great and grand and winning rugby, and think I want to come back and watch again next week, and I want to go on the field on Tuesday for my amateur club, and I want to go and do what Tom and Ben Kerry did, because ultimately that they are the future of the game. For me, they are the future of the game. There's going to be a time where I finish playing, these lads finish playing, and it's going to be passed on to someone else, and that's where I think we need to inspire the next generation. For us to do that, I just want to do my job as well as I can. So my job for this team is to try and control, manage the game, do all the things that maybe people don't see, to try and make us play attacking rugby, to score tries, to win. And like, if I do that and I've got the respect of my teammates, then that's not to say other people are different. Everyone's different, but that's the way I see it.
And the Premiership, you would argue at the moment, is a very attacking, attractive product. Yes.
Yeah, but there's so many points scored. I think if you look on the flip side of the coin, it probably means defences aren't great. Like this is the evolution. This is the big debate. It shouldn't really be a debate, like, as in it's just the game. Like I think the game goes through so many cycles. Like you look 2 years ago, everyone was complaining about kicking, but why was no one saying like
that is an unbelievably entertaining form
and
of the game.
skillful part of the game.
Skillful, tactical, so much thought and thinking goes into that. And then it's probably changed more recently. I don't think the Premiership's probably the standard holder in terms of rugby at the minute, just purely because it's very high point scoring game. But I've just got my defensive hat on. Like, that's probably, the attacks are obviously very good and that's very exciting. But for me, I want to see defences stopping tries as well. So again, and this is what goes back to Ben, is like, you don't have to like something, you can love something, it is fine, the game is still going to go ahead and it's still going to get better. We just need it probably then to be, I don't know how that's going to be commercialised, that's not my job, but I'll just play hard.
This next 2-3 weeks could be huge, couldn't it? For you as a club?
Yeah, massive. I think in terms of the last 4 or 5 years, we've been nearly there, haven't we? One final and I think 3 or 4 semis. So for us, yeah, we want to win it essentially, and I think we've got a good group here to get over the line. But yeah, it's one of those ones where you can't really, like, you have your kind of what you're aiming for, but you can't really look past. It's pretty cliche. You can't really look past the next week, can you? Like you saw today, like every day. And that's the challenge. Like, obviously, you got the big thing at the end of the week, but every day coming and getting a little bit better, like challenging each other. That's probably where the best teams are at, where you can kind of hold that there, but then each day bring it back to like, how are we going to get better? Keep attacking every day. And it's tough because there is a lot of exciting things coming up, but keep bringing it back to the boring stuff, getting better.
It's a relentless sport, and you have very little time off. You know, there'll be international tours in the summer, and obviously British and Irish Lions tour in the summer, which one of the three of you is currently involved in, but maybe all of you could eventually be involved in if there are, you know, injuries and things happen elsewhere. And I think a lot of people, particularly George, were very surprised that you weren't in that group of players that was announced. And the way the announcements are made was fantastic entertainment for those of us who aren't directly involved. But my God, tell me what it was like to be around each other when that happened.
We had a terrible one because we were playing the next day, so we were trapped on the bus watching it, and I think I was opposite Tom, and 40 you were like, it's just like we had. I don't know if you know much about Bevan Rod, but he's a nightmare to do. But especially like if you're like bricky, like you're like, this is one of the biggest things that could happen, and you've got him next to you, just it was, and you got nowhere to hide. It was tough. Obviously, yeah, I'm so happy for Tom and Dickie. Like that's the other flip side. If I'm not feeling sorry, but that's the flip side. Like, it's ultimate elation for those lads, and you're so happy for them. Elation. I said, like, I think Tom said in an interview, it's the pinnacle.
But it's such
it's truly special. Yeah.
But it's such a public way of.
I think it's good.
Out.
I think
Do
it is.
you?
Yeah, I think it's like. To be fair, at the time I was like, this is terrible. Because also they had
just give me a call.
Well, they had half an hour before that of build up, but they're introducing people to something. It's just like,
I watched it live. It was extraordinary.
Well, for you guys, it's great, isn't it?
It was the same last time though, because we watched it
but
together.
I was nowhere near it.
No,
so
I know,
like,
but like you find out at the time, so I don't understand why everyone's like this.
Well, there's only Maro who finds out, obviously, or
But
the
that's what
captain
happens.
finds out the day
it
before.
does.
And then-
Yeah.
don't
And
really
what I mean is, you can find out. You can find out privately. Like I've talked to people
home.
who've sat in
Well,
front
actually,
of
some
the
players,
telly
because
at home.
Leicester were at home, weren't they? Because obviously the Leicester players
you're
were kind of,
you're on
and some of the
team
Saracens
bosses
players were
and
at
also
home.
in the age of social media and stuff, everything's.
I think Jack Morgan was on a plane,
everything's
wasn't
being
he?
filmed, isn't
Yeah.
it?
It was a bad day to be a tripod.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tripods around.
And in terms of you as a family, I mean, how do your parents deal with this then? In terms of who do they bring first? They commiserate with you first.
They're pretty used to it. It's been 8 years of kind of dropped, selected, not selected. So I think we're pretty used to it now. But I think I think you said it in an interview before. It's like, it's the thing about sport life. You always want to get to the next thing, and that's with rugby. Like, there's always something more to go after. So in terms of like personally, like the Six Nations, like was a dream come true, and obviously, yeah, you want to be on the Lions. I still do. However, it's kind of like I don't want that to take away from what the season I've already had so far. Like, it's been ultimately truly special. Like, you have the dark times where like that is what you want to do. Like, that's all I want to do is play for England with Tom, 40, all the Sale lads. And I got to do that. So I'm in a place where I'm not letting that take away from what I've experienced this summer.
Do you ever get used to the disappointments?
I think you always feel the disappointments, though. I suppose you get used to dealing with it better. I think, I think one thing, like selection, for example. whether it's selection for Sale or England or the Lions or whatever, it's all very subjective, if that makes sense.
You can only control what you
exactly,
can control.
Yeah. And that's the way I've tried to deal with it now. Like if a coach wants a certain player to play a certain way or whatever, or what for a particular game you might want to go down a different route, like then that's why the coaches are in their position to make them selections, to get paid for that. As a player, all you can do is, like you just said, control what you can control, train as well as you can every day, try and improve, make sure you're ready if you do get picked. Like, and I again, it sounds quite simple and basic, but when you sort of dumb it all down, I suppose that's all you can do as a player. Like, keep pushing your case forward, and
that's the wisdom that comes with all those experiences that you talk about, being picked, and I suppose when you look back at your younger self, you kind of that's the one thing that
the other thing that I experienced on it, like, is at the end of the day we play the ultimate team sport, so it's about the team winning at weekend. Now, whatever role you might be playing, you might be coming off the bench, you might not be involved, but if you want to be part of a winning team, which is what it's about, like lifting a trophy above your head at the end of it, then you should be yourself no matter what, because you can't take that memory away when you do go and win it. Like, it's an unbelievable thing to do, and yeah, of course you want to be playing a part of that, but if you're not, make the team as good as it can be to try and win.
Well, I think that's a very good way to end. You two were kind of nodding in agreement there. I feel like that was a real kind of captain's out there, wasn't it? It felt like a captain's kind of speech there. So.
Well, you have a squad of leaders, don't you? I mean, that's part of putting a squad together. It's not just about the talent; it's about that.
Yeah, and I think everyone, in terms, like, we have pretty much game drivers most days, and sometimes you look around the table, you're like, this group actually complements each other so nicely in terms of like the senior leaders, and there's obviously leaders on the pitch, off the pitch, but I think Al's really big on that. I think even today, like, we've got a leaders group in the 23 who are playing, but then there's also energy drivers who are to be fair, I've never been on one of those meetings, but they drive the energy in the non-23. So there's everyone.
They're called energy drivers.
Energy drivers. That's what I am to you.
Yeah, you very much are.
But everyone does it in their own different ways, and I think giving lads responsibility is a really good thing. We talk about like next person stepping in. Like, at some point, like, we'll have to pass the baton on to them, and it's for them to step up. So I think kind of bringing it back to the start is like the club's in a good place in terms of, especially with the leadership. Like, we've got lads coming through. So no, I'm really positive for the future.
Wish you well at the weekend.
Best of luck at the weekend.
And beyond. I know we're only looking one game at a time. And beyond.
Thanks so much for chatting to us.
Thank you very much,
guys.
So we've had a chance to really immerse ourselves in Sale Sharks today and spoke to some great players. We've seen how it operates outside and inside, so it is fitting that we get time with Michelle Orange, who I feel has a lot to do with the culture of this place. And I'm sure your presence here, Michelle, it makes the players aware that you care as well. And you spend a lot of time here at the training ground, don't you?
Yeah, I wouldn't take credit for the culture, maybe nurturing it and encouraging it, but I'm certainly not responsible for it. That's very much all the other hundreds of people who work here and play here. But yeah, it is very important. I'm in a very unique position that I'm an owner or a co-owner who can spend a lot of time here. So I am here roughly 3-4 days a week, and then obviously match days we're around, whether it's home or away. So one, it's very important to me to make sure I'm happy in my working environment, but two, it's more important that everyone who works here is happy within their working environment, because it's such a stressful week in, week out place to be when you're preparing for a match every weekend.
Is there a balance then for that? Because you look at owners in all sorts of sports, they can be accused of being distant, they can be accused of being too present and too interfering. So for you, how much of a balance do you actually have to really think about how much you're here and how much you give them their space?
Well, I think my particular journey is quite interesting, because when we bought the club, so Jed, Mason, Simon, my husband and I bought into the club in 2016, and initially I was very much the owner's wife. I wasn't really involved. I certainly wouldn't say I was unwelcome at Carrington, but it wasn't encouraged. I then joined, I became a trustee of the Sale Sharks Foundation, which is our community arm. So it meant I was dipping in and out of Carrington a bit more, and then, you know, sometimes I'd say, do we really want to do that, like in our corporate hospitality on a match day, or should the hostesses maybe wearing a different uniform? And then I'd get involved in kit design, and I'd just basically finagled my way in. And then it's really probably only the last 2 years that I've been here in the capacity that I am. I call myself owner without portfolio. I'm just here to lend support. We have the most amazing CEO, Paul Smith, who has been with the club ever since he was a child, to be perfectly honest. He used to play for us in the early days of the professional era, and then he's stayed with the club ever since then. So we've got in him the most perfectly organic, suited CEO. I'm just around that he doesn't have to keep worrying, oh, I need to speak to the owners about this and worry about that, and shall we do this? So I think that's advantageous that I get that. I don't think I'm too hands-on. And I certainly very much leave the rugby side to Alex and to Katie and Tom, you know, the men's and the women's coaches. So I don't get involved in that. But I am there to put a comforting arm around anyone who needs it, and obviously give big hugs whenever we've got news to celebrate.
We can hear by your accent that you are local to the club.
Very.
That's not the case with every club in the country, and as you say, not all owners are prominent and and don't lend their kind of faces to the club. You two grew up about a mile apart, I think, did you?
Yeah.
And we've already mentioned that Chappa's first sporting experience as a kid was coming to watch Sale Sharks. How much of your life was aware or spent at Sale Sharks as a kid?
Very much. I literally grew up half of a mile away from Hayward Road, which is the ancestral home to Sale FC. My dad was always into rugby, so as a little girl I would watch what was the Five Nations at that point in black and white, trying to make head or tail of it. I was always intrigued when during final score on the video printer you'd see the name Sale come up, and I'm like, we don't have a football team, do we, Dad? And he goes, no, that's the rugby team. So we'd go every now and then. I wouldn't say necessarily frequently, but those were the days you'd still get a local newspaper through your door every week, the Messenger, so you'd be able to read what was happening with the club. And then as a schoolgirl, going to Sale Girls Grammar, so the grammar school then was boys and girls separately. The only chance to actually go and see any boys at the weekend was to go to the rugby. So we went there, not all the time again, but we'd hang around there. We had quite a lot of male friends at the school who all played rugby, not necessarily at Sale FC, but with the affiliated grassroots clubs. I also had a period living 2 doors down from Steve Smith. Obviously the legendary Sale and England and Lions scrum half, who was the bane of my life when I was studying for my O-levels, showing my age, in that he was very much in the amateur age of rugby, coming home from sessions in the Little B. And
nodding at Mark all this while, because he knows all these
I'm
local
nodding at
hangouts.
every single reference.
So like literally from as long as I can remember, probably like the age of 4 or 5, that's my recollection of knowing we had a really, really good rugby club within our area and being very proud of it.
And to sort of paint that picture as well, Hayward Road is just in the middle of a whole load of houses. Yeah. Basically, it's nothing grand. I think there's just about what you would call a stand there on one side, but also there are 2 or 3 squash courts at one end. That's where my dad used to go and play squash every Sunday morning. Not anymore, but my dad used to go and play squash, and I would go and watch my dad play squash, and then where he put himself on the squash ladder compared to who he played against. I had my 21st in the bar at Sale Rugby Club. That's where I had my 21st, and it's so evocative and so about community. And one of the things that it does make me quite emotional. One of the things that's been so nice today is there's still that sense of community. You can still be because back then, of course, you just played random rugby teams. It always seemed to be from Scott Kelso would turn up, or Hoyk would turn up. Orrell would be the big derby. Leicester would very occasionally come in. You'd get to see Dusty Hare or whatever. Yeah. But that sense of community and family is still here. Everybody has said hello to us today. Nobody walks past with their head down. Everybody wants to talk. I think, and everything about everybody. We left the canteen. You asked somebody if they got their dissertation in, and
that's because I helped him. He interviewed me the other week.
But that's the key to your job is to know the little details about people.
I somewhat arrogantly call myself Mummy Shark, and that's what I feel I am. And again, it's a privileged position to be in. I mean, like without Jed and Simon having the very successful businesses that they have, we wouldn't be able to afford a club because, as I think we all know, that the financial circumstances of rugby union premiership isn't necessarily that healthy. So Simon and Jed, they have to spend their weekdays working for their businesses that ultimately help keep the club alive. But I want to be here. I want to be the eyes and the ears, because I don't just want to pitch up on a match day and not really know what's going on. So it is a privilege. It genuinely is, and I think we don't even call ourselves really the owners of the club. We're the custodians of it. It's been Sale has existed since 1861. It will exist hopefully for decades,
well, you
centuries
say that,
more.
But we were discussing just before, weren't we, that rugby's been through a very tumultuous period and will continue. There are clubs we understand right now who are facing a difficult summer in terms of their finances. This club has got security with your family and also Jed's wealth, and unless you both decide that it's no longer for you, this club can feel its place at the top table of rugby is secure for the
we very
foreseeable.
much hope so. So, look, I really didn't want to buy the rugby club. I won't go into that because I've spoken about it many times before, but I was quite cross when Simon wanted to buy Sale Sharks. And obviously I've got completely and utterly engrossed in it. In fact, it's probably down to me that we started spending up to salary cap. So when we bought the club, we bought it from Brian Kennedy, a very successful local businessman who'd spent a lot of money, obviously taken Sale to the dizzy heights. But then, for whatever reasons, business, personal, he wanted to step back. And Steve Diamond, who was here at the time, he was, very keen that the club would survive because he knew without a buyer, the club would get even further underfunded and probably wouldn't survive its place in the Premiership. So we came in and we just thought, we'll just, we'll break even. We weren't, the team at the time weren't spending up to salary cap. We very much found that when the year we bought in June. So by the time we actually started playing in September, we'd lost quite a few high-profile squad members. For example, like Danny Cipriani, Tommy Taylor had all left. And we were all right. I think the first season we finished 10th. I'm so bad at remembering numbers, so please don't quote me, and Sale Shark supporters don't get cross at me. But it was 18 months into ownership. We had this most phenomenal match against Wasps at home at the stadium on a Friday night. It ended 28-27. The crowd were on the feet. It was cat and mouse rugby the whole way. It's when Faf de Klerk managed to knock out Danny Cipriani on a tackle. And the whole crowd erupted when the full-time whistle went, and we couldn't believe it. And I was saying to Simon, why don't we feel like this more? Because we were having hit and miss games, we were losing narrowly, we weren't winning. He goes, we're going to have to spend a salary cap. And I'm like, well, can we? He goes, yeah. I said, does it affect our lifestyle? Not really. I said, well, why don't we? Because if we're going to be here, we want to make it as fun as possible. You want to enjoy it more. So that's what we've done. So we're in a very fortunate position now that, we are able to spend, but that's through choice. We're quite a different model to a lot of the other clubs in that we don't own our own stadium. So we don't benefit from the revenue stream that owning a stadium business has.
Is that something you want to change?
Ideally. So at the moment, we obviously play at Salford Community Stadium. I'm sure people know there have been a few issues there. Ultimately, I would love to see us own our own stadium, but I think that's a long way off. So at the moment, we're going to make work where we are and help improve it. But that, to me, would be the absolute epitome.
Because then you would have a revenue stream on match.
And that would be, leaving a legacy as well. Not for us, but for the club. But so where other businesses benefit from having a revenue stream, and then also, for example, Bath, Northampton, theoretically their main sport is rugby. They are the most successful team there. So they generate a huge crowd and a huge following. Whereas we're operating a landscape where we've got we compete against either United and City every weekend, not to mention the Championship teams, League One, League Two, Rugby League, of course, and then even stretching out to Liverpool and Everton.
Well, in the north now, there are only Newcastle Falcons and Sale Sharks
precisely.
left. Yeah.
So, but
is that a good thing for you or a negative?
Well, as I say, I'm not sure Simon and Jed really love this philosophy, but the fact is we're on it. We're not leaving. We don't want to go into witness relocation. Jed's born and bred Salford. I'm born and bred Sale.
Yeah.
Simon's from Wythenshawe. We now live in Altrincham. I don't want to sell my house and have to go into witness relocation. So I'm going to do everything as I can to make sure this club survives, but it succeeds and it's enjoyable for everyone who supports it.
Success makes it's an obvious thing to say, but that makes such a difference, doesn't it, in what you've just described there as a crowded landscape. And we're at this pivotal point of the season for you, just a few days ahead of the final league game, which if you win, and hopefully you will, against Exeter, then obviously no offence to Exeter, but I'm sitting here with the owner of the Sale Sharks. Exeter, you could have invited us down, but anyway. And then you then have a playoff. You get to a playoff final potentially, and you've been there. You've been in that playoff final. didn't happen for you against Saracens. Winning that, what would it do to this club?
I don't even know if it necessarily brings anything extra yet. Maybe your data figures go up, so you get more eyes on the prize, you know, your social media audiences. So that then obviously translates well to people who may be potentially interested in sponsoring you or taking hospitality out with you. As I say, it's a very, very busy marketplace in which we operate. Are we in a natural rugby union landscape? Perhaps not. Were we to move to a different part of the area, the city, would we have a more natural rugby union audience? Perhaps, but who knows? That's a very costly exercise to undertake. But I think from our point of view, we can just be safe in the knowledge if we're succeeding, and we do feel that the club has turned around massively in the last 4 seasons that Alex Sanderson has been here. So it's more enjoyable for us, it's more enjoyable for the players who play here, it's attracting new players who want to come and play here. When we bought the club in 2016, we didn't have one England player, we couldn't attract an England player. Now the last training camp ahead of Argentina tour for the summer, we had 9 in the England camp. So it's a true testament of just the academy size that we're growing, but also the popularity getting and be able to attract players like Luke Cowan-Dickey who wants to come and play for us, like George Ford who wants to come.
But you're also, as well, I mean, we walked from the canteen up here into the gym to do this interview. You're attracting players to the women's team now. It's been a difficult season for the women, and it's a difficult market to break into given the historical strengths of different regions when it comes to women's rugby.
And it's all still so new, isn't it? Professional women's rugby.
But on that walk at the top of the stairs here, you had some of your new signees waiting to give you a hug.
Yeah, I know. And again, absolutely thrilled. We didn't have women's rugby when we bought the club. We were lucky enough that in 2019, 2020, RFU then opened up a tender process to be able to apply for a place in the league, in the women's, it was then the Premier 15s. Waterloo had always been historically the very successful women's team in the Northwest. Unfortunately, they didn't have the money, and obviously with the advent of the women's game turning professional, they needed funding. So we sort of filled their slot. I somewhat naively thought, I'll be dead easy. About a third of the Roses are from the North, they'll all want to come and play for us. And of course, they were all a little too settled where they were, didn't want to take that chance, which I don't begrudge them at all. And we have had a really, really difficult journey. You know, we set up a team during COVID. We've had all sorts of recruitment issues we've had to contend with. We've not been able to attract the calibre of players. I think this year we've changed it a bit. Katie Daly-McLean is definitely leading the, marking her flag in the sand in terms of women's rugby for the Northwest and across the country.
She's a driving force.
She's an absolute driver and a trailblazer, and we're so lucky she's on board. But we've recruited new coaches. We finally, I think, with the women's I think one of the problems in terms of recruitment previously is because this is a World Cup year and it's in England, a lot of the England Roses like, I'm going to stay with my club, I know I'm going to be performing, I know my club will perform, my team will perform, and I'm hopeful I can guarantee my selection for the Roses. Whereas now with the World Cup obviously we're over by the time we start the new 25-26 season. Perhaps there's a bit more, maybe it's time for a change. And some of them, you know, great credit to them. We want to come and do our bit for the North. We realise that the landscape for women's rugby, we are the only Northern rugby premiership team for the PWR.
And in terms of the facility here, the women's kind of presence is very much felt. This is a shared facility with the women.
That was very important to me from the point when we set up the team. I wanted the women on side. I don't want them to feel second best. I don't want to speak for other clubs, but I know they don't necessarily have the space in their facilities to accommodate both teams. But we're at the point, we're kind of like squeezing everyone in now. We're looking at having to actually get some portable buildings built, brought in so we can provide changing rooms because the women's team is expanding and stuff like that. But I think it's so important that the whole club is under one roof. And that includes the commercial team. So that's probably the other benefit of not owning a stadium. I suspect most clubs, if they have a stadium, they own their facility. Their commercial team are all based there, whereas all our commercial team are here, the media team, so they have direct access to the players, direct access to the coaches. The players have direct access to one another. You can see Lizzie Duffy talking to George Ford about how can I perfect this, that and the other. They give each other feedback, and everyone very much feels it's one club, one family, all under one roof.
You're your internal voice and culture is so strong, how strong a voice do you feel you have externally when it comes to the future of rugby union?
As an individual, or as a club?
But a bit of both, really, because I would say one of your big strengths, probably both you and Simon, is coming from a not looking at everything from a sporting, like looking at it from a life experience and what you can bring from the lives that you have had, and therefore it's a little bit what you feel the two of you offer individually to the rugby union authorities, and how big a voice Sale have in all of this.
So obviously most of the other teams in the Prem, forgive me, I don't think I'm wrong, but most of the other 9, their ownerships have been in place for a long, long time. They've not necessarily had the change in ownership that Sale has encountered. So maybe it's bringing fresh eyes, new eyes, naive eyes to a certain degree. I mean, to be perfectly honest,
naive eyes are good though, aren't they? Because you can get away with a lot
if
with
we
naive
had
eyes.
really studied the business model of running a rugby club, I can guarantee you, I mean, Simon to this day says if he'd known what he knows now, we wouldn't have bought it. But it's too late. We're in, and it's for life, and we will ensure that we leave enough money for it. Luckily, we don't have kids, so we don't have to leave an inheritance. So whatever this is left when we die, it will go pretty much to the club, and that's the way it will be, because we're not going to commit all this hard time and graft and money and resource now to just see that fall off if we disappear. And hopefully we're here for a good another 20, 30 years, but that's really, really important to me. And we're a joke now, so Josh Beaumont's just coming to the end of his playing career. He's retiring. He's going to take in a part-time role within the commercial department, which has been cleared by salary cap, may I point out, for anyone who's listening. But ultimately, when Paul Smith retires, because he's mid-50s like I am, another 10, 15 years, I could well see Josh Beaumont becoming CEO of the club. Likewise, Paul Smith's daughter, Emma, who's just doing her A-levels, is so passionate about the rugby and the club, and she works for us on match days, she helps out in hospitality and stuff like that. I could well see Emma joining the business and ultimately becoming a CEO of the club, because everyone's so passionate. So, yeah, we call ourselves a family, and I promise you it really is a bit of a family. We've got so many brothers and sisters playing here, it's ridiculous, but we're northern, and we're friendly, we're a family, and that's kind of like the culture we're trying to build.
Well, it isn't trying. I think you've succeeded in terms of the culture, because it really feels like that when you're here, and it's been such a brilliant day, hasn't it? We've really enjoyed meeting every person, it feels, in every corner of this club that we've looked at. It's been amazing.
Well, we're honoured to have you, seriously.
And Alex, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem.
Thank you very much for everything you've allowed us to watch and be part of. It's quite unusual for someone in your position to allow that. Why do you allow it?
We've always had an open door, revolving door almost, up here. We're really proud of what we're putting together, and the environment that we're looking to create, not less the methodology that we're always looking to improve from a coaching perspective. And when you have people in, whoever it is, you glean things from them. We're open to learn, and that's around being open to listen. So with you guys coming in, it creates a bit of a spike for the boys, like what's this about? And finally, maybe people are starting to open their arms up and turning hearts and minds in that respect to what we're doing up north, in the northwest at least.
You were just talking a moment ago before we started recording about your messaging and how you deliver that through a season after a long campaign, and keeping that fresh as well. Where do you get your inspiration from that you're then passing on?
Quiet times. Everyone's got their own little cosy space, haven't they? So a lot of mine is done in the car. Some of it in the bathroom.
Listening to things?
Taking in, looking for analogies, metaphors. Like this week, we spoke a little bit around Mondo Duplantis, the pole vaulter, right? And Exeter are a really, really good team, and they've got good pedigree and a lot of pride there. And yet this guy who's 24 and an 8 times world champion doesn't really compete against opposition. He competes against himself. Mm-hmm. And we feel that, in our frustrations over recent weeks have been because of our own actions. So can we turn to ourselves and look to ourselves as being the best motivators for the standards that we want to set, the heights that we want to reach to. So that's just an example.
So Mondo
of this
Duplantis
week.
has become the kind of theme of the week.
The poster boy for this week, not a bad poster boy.
And did that just come to you? Were you reading an article? Were you listening to a podcast? Where, or was it one of your team? Because the other thing that we've both spotted is this is you may be the leader, but this is a team effort.
That one generally it comes from me. We do have discussions around it, and I'll pose maybe different narratives on a weekly basis, and the coaches will give me their opinions, and some of them will be too fantastical, and they'll be like, no, it doesn't really stick, Al, and others just seem right. And I take most of my inspiration from the conversations they have, the players' language, the scenario that we're in, the challenge that we're facing, and then zip it back and then see if I can find examples and metaphors and narratives that align with that. So it's always the content first, in-house content, and then, like I say, I write a lot down, I journal a lot, and then I reflect on that over the quiet time. It's usually a Sunday, and I've got a really smart guy in IT who's good with AI, so he because a lot of it's visual as well. You don't want a PowerPoint. The visual cortex, you can access it 3,000 times faster than the written word. So imagery is an important thing.
Will Still, who was the
Southampton.
Lons manager, who's now going to take over at Southampton.
Right.
I was watching him on Monday Night Football, and he did a whole presentation on how it was all visual. It was all visual for the players, because he found that for his generation of players out where he was in Lons, that the visual stuff is what makes them think. That's what they get, rather than PowerPoints and words.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then it's got to come back to grass chappers. It's got to come back to what you do on the field, because although most of them have a bias towards visuals, their primary learning default is kinesthetic. So the narrative can't rule over what you're going after on the field on Saturday, or the standards you're trying to set in terms of your preparation during the week. So it sounds more complicated than it is, but 30 years in the game and probably 15 years of doing this, it probably comes a bit more natural to me.
Can I ask one about, because when we were standing outside watching training, how complicated, how much time does putting a session together take? Because you've got 40, 50 blokes. Well, you will tell me the exact numbers, but 40 blokes out on the grass today.
Yeah.
When we were in the team meeting, we could see everything broken down for them in the term of minutes.
What their units were.
So units and how long on each one. But even towards the end, when you were having a full match, there was a guy walking around in the middle during the odd respite with a whiteboard that I couldn't see from where I was, but presumably had other detail on it. So how long does each session take for you to put together?
A long time, because the session is dependent on 3 games that are over 10 gigs of information, which is analysed over 5-6 coaches, thin sliced to around 3 clips per area, and then from those 3 clips you come up with 2 or 3 things that you're going after, and that formulates the content for the session. And then you have to kind of align that with their loading or a cumulative load. So that's all GPS data, sports science. So we get told the intensity and the times that we can work within. So we fit that content to those times.
And that, just to interrupt you there, that's so important in terms of injury prevention, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
you can't ignore that information.
Yeah, like you just need your best players as fresh as possible. You don't want them to get punch drunk in the week, because you're trying to leave no stone unturned. So you've really got a thin slice and think at what the main things that we're going after as a team, what we're going after, and some things you have to ignore for the benefit of what's needed for the weekend. So that process of what the week looks like, what the session looks like, starts on the Friday before, so like 10 days before, and then we'll kind of thin slice what the loading looks like around Sunday and understand how the lads are, because there's always feedback from the game, and that might shift and change the session. So the night before, we've got the bones of it, how many minutes we're doing and what area and what we're doing, what we're focusing on, and we'll change that again the day after they've come in. We call them MOTs, but they'll come in, they get checked out, and we'll change it again. So it's probably it's a 3-stage process, I would say. refining the detail as we go through the week. And then 5 coaches, 6 coaches who all have the specific role clarity in terms of who's watching what, where they're stood in the field, who's on transition, like so we have a guy coming in with the names and numbers, so you want the session to flow as well, so you can get the most out of every second, every minute. Looking at trying to get about 50% ball in play time in a game like today, so the session was about 80 minutes long and the actual ball in play was around 40 minutes, and that replicates the intensity, a peak game intensity of kind of the toughest game. So it's all, there is a method behind the madness.
It's very scientific, isn't it? And that obviously takes a lot of your time, as well as all the other stuff we're talking about, inspiring this group of players and creating an atmosphere here that they really want to be here because they're having a great time. I want to know about the balance between that and having the intensity on a match day where you're being asked to run through a brick wall for each other.
The two things go hand in hand for me, 100%. I mean, there's science out there now that proves it in terms of oxytocin, you know, the love drug that mums get when they have a child, or you get through social bonding, or you get through sexual intercourse. So we can't do that.
First time on the sports radio.
Yeah, there you go.
Most definitely.
Breastfeeding as well. So we can't bring the kids in for breastfeeding. And the other things taboo. But social bonding, togetherness, an altruistic, I guess, nature of how we work together. Like, they're in competition out there, but there's no one player that's going to try and injure another player. And in fact, they'll learn more from the peers. So understanding that as a motivational force, a why power, if you will, it's up on the wall, you must have walked past it, a why power, and that's one of the strongest motivational forces, is to do it for your mate, to do it for your buddy. And we're very lucky in this sport that's how rugby works. It's less bias on the technical side and more on the collective effort, the collective physicality.
This was mentioned in the team meeting as well at the end, and there are signs of it around this building. There are literal signs about being humble and respect. And I talked to Gabby after we were in that team meeting about how every player put their chair back against the wall and stacked them up, that they cleaned up after themselves, which, as Gabby explained, is also a big rugby union thing. How do you balance the humility of being a Sale player with the sort of, may have to bleep this out, but arriving somewhere and go, right, we're fucking Sale and we're going to smash you?
I think humility is perhaps the bigger, more important priority and value of any sportsman, particularly when they're surrounded by media attention. You know, look at us now.
But you want the arrogance as well on the field.
Well, you want the confidence. I know we mentioned arrogance. You want the belief, you know, and the confidence that they're able to do the job, and so they don't spiral and look to chase when the game gets sticky and they're extremely fatigued. I would say, you know, for this group, humility or being grounded comes with this part of the world. You know, being Northern or even South African, and they're very similar in terms of the mindsets, that they're a lot more action-based than they are words. A lot of these lads are only just starting to get recognition, international recognition. The club for a long time has been the proverbial on the sole of the shoe with the Premiership. You know, tough to come up, you know, are they our place to come, but are they really contenders? And we've shown over the last few years that we're knocking on the door at least. So, you know, it's nothing the lads haven't grown up with or been raised with in terms of the values. So it's a very easy aspect to the mentality to tap into, and it's something that suits and fits us. The next step is when we're not underdogs anymore, and clearly we've stepped out from the radar now, haven't we? Like, we were 9% to win this. I think 9% back in November, and now we must be 80-90% to get to playoffs. And once we're there with that bit of momentum, I think
that fired you, that, didn't it? That
it does,
percentage
and it still
you.
does. You know, so there's the humbleness and understanding that we have to work hard for this, but then there's the anger that fuels, and anger is a gift. You know, patience is a virtue. Anger is a gift for people writing us off, and we don't deserve to be written off. We've proven that at this point in the season, anyway.
Interesting, the reaction the players gave, we just sat down with the Curry brothers and
Yeah.
George Ford, and I brought up the name Henry Pollock and asked them about, he was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, about celebrations.
Yeah.
And almost to a man, like, unified response was, we don't need that.
Yeah.
Because it's not them.
If it's not
Yeah.
you shouldn't feel you have to be that person. And obviously Henry would say he's being himself.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously that riled up Bordeaux at the weekend, didn't it? The kind of things that he does, and they maybe use that as fuel as well. And the sport, that, you know, a lot of talk about what the sport needs. You do need eyeballs on the sport, and you do need headlines, and you do need headline grabbers. And it just felt in that moment there is a juxtaposition, and the sport's got to kind of wrestle with that. You know, here you have a very collective mentality. How would you react if you had a player who was doing celebrations and putting himself that bit out there?
I think if it was authentic, then you know, you want characters. You certainly want characters, because it's characters that win your cups. It's them that lead. You know, that the first over the top when it does get a bit tough. You know, and it's too hard for most. It's just right for those people who have that kind of a mindset. I'd probably ask him for what was his reasons for celebrating, and I'm all for them celebrating as well. Like, we have stats, celebrating support stats we call them. It was a study done a few years ago in NBA, and it found the most successful teams are the ones that had the most physical contacts, or the most verbal support and recognition of things that went poorly or went well. So we measure that, and it correlates to our performance as well. So it's something we do encourage, but it's internal. It's for us. It's for no one else. Well, it is for our own spectators, and it is for the fans, but it's not for the individual to gain recognition for the singular event. Yeah. Like, we're celebrating because we've contributed for him or someone like that to get over the line, or to make the big hit, or get the turnover. So it's just again, it's that altruistic kind of quality that we're looking to lean into, not the individual selfish one.
It's hard though, isn't it? Because you've got this collective mentality, but you're going to have match winners, aren't you? You're going to have people that you should single out occasionally, and you should mention how well. I think you mentioned George Ford's name in the meeting. Or you didn't mention George Ford's name, but he was mentioned. Obviously, as somebody who's been playing brilliantly at the moment. He's a great leader.
Fire,
and behind, we understand now the metaphor of the rowing boat that's on the wall up there. Yeah. That now there's some cycling shirts as well. We were kind of guessing and surmising what they might have.
These are all old themes, and we'll probably bring the rowing boat back in. Like, I was going to get something painted on the wall, so that was like, you want to be in the boat, right? The boys in the boat. There's a book around it, and
a film.
And the film. There's a collective element there that you want to be ones in the boat, because in pre-season they're competing against themselves or each other, but there's no game at the end of the week, so it's important to gain recognition for training standards, really. So we have positional players who won a seat in the boat. So it's not like you're comparing a prop with a back who's running twice as much as you, but in their own position, can they get onto the boat? So individual recognition, showing that.
Might sink with too many props.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the shirts came from the narrative, the theme last year. And when you've got like a slightly longer theme, it's important to have some longevity to it. So we were in similar positions to how we were this year. There was like a chasing pack of around 5 or 6 teams. We were 8th in the league at that point in time. Northampton were way ahead, and I'm like, look, boys, I know no one's given us a chance, but we can slipstream people here. Like, climbing the second to last hill on the Tour de France, we called it the Tour de Force. So I said, we can slipstream people here, and during the time we were giving the jerseys away for the same reasons that they do in the Tour de France. So, you know, youngest rider and fastest start and all that kind of stuff. And it just kept it alive for as long as we needed it to. But little reminders of, I guess, you know, what we've done before. Mm-hmm. That's where the belief comes, chappers. It comes in, Gabby. The season's so long that towards the end you forget why, what was motivating you at the start, you know, and you probably forget the fact that whatever success you have is never linear. There's always been those bumps and dips and troughs, as well as the peaks and the highs and the euphoric feeling that we get after some good wins. And around this time, like, the physical things, the pictures on the wall, the boat that's hung up there, the shirts, it reminds you of the distance that you've travelled to get to this point. I think that's all important.
What motivates you?
I was just thinking that, like, I've had a tough year for one reason or another. I broke my ribs. I lost my dad. The first was my fault and the second was his time. I would go through that physical and emotional pain again to have this opportunity with these boys. I think they're a real special group, and I think we can do something this year and moving forward that does stand the test of time. And I know it's transcendency and it's big picture, but you've got to step back and reflect and take a breath and appreciate the privileged position that we're in. I don't want this to end. I don't want this to end this season. I don't want it to end in a foreseeable future with this group of boys.
Did you give yourself time with those?
There's no time. I mean, that's the beauty about sport. Like, life ambles on, sport careens. Like, you just got to get back on the treadmill, and it's been a blessing for me, that, being around this group.
How much does home life help you? I mean, we've talked to numerous football managers. I can remember talking to Graham Potter when Graham Potter was at Brighton, and he would, not far off, but sort of he would talk about cutting himself off really from his family for 24 hours with the pain of a defeat, and being in the spare room and analysing and over-analysing and so on and so forth. And I could sort of remember saying to him, that's I understand it, but that's not very healthy. Are you
I like to think I'm a bit more level now than I was. With that, you don't get, like the old expression, too down with the losses, too high with the wins. But so you don't enjoy it as much as what you did. But there's a need for me to remain emotionally consistent. Family's massive for me. I've got a kid who loves rugby. He's 8-9 years old, but don't care if I win or lose. Like, he still wants a cuddle at the end of the day. Yeah. I've got a wife that's very understanding, and I sat her down on Sunday and I said, "You're going to lose me for 3 weeks here, then." Like, you probably won't see me. And she gets it, so she's all supportive when needs must. Like, she knows I have to lean into it. But when I get the opportunity, and I am, after the press, after this, I'm going to town to my lad's favourite burger restaurant and then going to play some crazy golf. So there's always the need to schedule in the off time.
So the crazy golf at this outside of the Trafford Centre, is it, in this weather?
No, it's junkyard golf.
Oh, it's a junkyard?
Yeah, you can get a beer there. So.
Well, enjoy that, and any downtime that you eventually get in the summer, but hopefully this season will go on a lot longer yet.
I hope so.
So thank you so much again for having us here today. It's been absolutely brilliant, hasn't it? We've thoroughly enjoyed our time and met some of your amazing cast and crew in this in this beautiful place,
including your owners, actually, which is just one final thing on what they have brought to here.
It wouldn't be possible without them. Si, Shell and Jed, like, they are not just our philanthropists, benefactors, but my dear friends. Like, when I talk about time away from this, like, we'll go out together. The first half an hour, 40 minutes will be about rugby, and then we'll have a laugh. And it'll be about the friendships, and that's what stands the test of time. Beyond the trophies, it's always been said, but this is what the lads will look back through in a few years and realise the friendships that they've made here are ones that are lifelong.
Thank you so much.
Well, that was a thoroughly brilliant few hours. So many things to take away from today. Absolutely loved getting into the mind of Al Sanderson.
And all the different techniques, and also the sheer amount of work that goes into planning one training session, and how they have to strip it back, and how everybody feeds into it. I mean, just that explanation of his craft, actually, that was amazing.
There is nothing left to chance in those training sessions at all. No. And the mindset here, the winning mindset that he has clearly really focused on, harnessed, and how important it is for him that players are continuously re-engaged and stimulated and not leaving anything to chance there. And on top of that, chatting to Michelle, how kind of at the other end there is that pastoral and I think cultural care that comes from that knowledge of this area and what it means to be a sales shark in this city.
Yeah, and this community and how they all are with each other. And then we saw that with the Curry brothers and with George Ford as well, and what they talk about when it comes to the sort of how they are as a collective, and how they're all in it together. And that goes back to that team meeting and emphasising the humility, which Al was very big on as well. I don't know, they're not going to be unique by any means, and there will be lots of different sports clubs that have similar philosophies or do similar things. But when this is the sort of club that you support, in my case, to come in and see how special it is means you just, I leave here feeling just really warm and happy, and
quite
because
proud?
I'm very proud. Yeah, very, very proud. I mean, I wish they played in Sale still, but maybe that will come, as Michelle said. But yeah, very proud, because you want the teams that are your teams or to be associated with to be doing the right thing. You can't win every year. No team in any sport can win every year, whatever the sport is. But if they're doing the right thing and everybody represents that club as they have represented themselves, you've got to feel pride.
And it seems an obvious thing to say at this point, but everybody here wants to be here. You get that feeling that everybody's enjoying their experience, which is why they're probably so confident about opening the doors here. Because I don't think you would feel as confident doing that, for example, right now at Manchester United. If we were to go and have a behind the scenes
I don't think they're going to be next on our list of behind the scenes.
I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying that. But
Sir Jim? Oh, okay, we'll leave it a little while.
Have a listen to our Sale Sharks episode. We'd love to do the same with you. But that is not something, you say they might be doing the same things at other clubs. That isn't as common.
No,
in
it
sport,
isn't.
Is it?
No,
to have that open door philosophy.
Well, I suppose what I'm saying is some people listening will think, well, maybe our head coach does this, or our owner is local and puts money in and wants success. But you are right. People don't open their doors as readily. But if you're proud of something and want to shout about it and don't feel that you've got anything to hide, then these kind of things are amazing, and that's obviously how they feel.
Well, that's it from us today for this very special bonus episode. Do, of course, search out more episodes of The Sports Agents on Global Player or wherever you get your podcasts.
And you can get in touch with us. Email thesportsagents@global.com.
Excellent
I know, I'm not reading it for once. thesportsagents@global.com.
And we'll see you on Thursday.
I'm off to the gym.
The Sports Agents
with Gabby Logan and Mark Chapman.